Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the May 18th episode of OITVOIP Partner First. This is actually a first for us, and I can't think of anyone better to do this first time event with us. We're doing a part two to a previous Partner First. We'll include a link in the show notes, and maybe Simon or Phil can put it up in the card somewhere. I don't know how that works. It's a YouTube thing. But this is part two of how to have difficult conversations before they become impossible. I'm joined again by Heather Johnson of Gozynta. How you doing, Heather?
I'm doing great, Ray. I'm glad to be here again.
Thank you. No, it's exciting. This was one of those where we had tons of questions. We only got like halfway through the presentation because it was so interesting and had such a great conversation. So much feedback from the chat. For those that didn't get to join us the first time, and I definitely recommend go back and watch the first one. It was fantastic. But can you tell people who you are? Give a little bit of your background.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Heather Johnson. I am the co-founder and chief operating officer at Gozynta. And if you don't know about Gozynta, we are a small mom and pop software development shop. We created Gozynta Mobius, which is an accounting integration, Tix, which is a text to ticket integration for Manage, and we just released and are taking signups now for Gozynta Payments, which is massively exciting because we worked so hard on it, and so that happened 2 days ago, so it's a big achievement for us. Also, I'm the vice president of the National Society of IT Service Providers. If you are not a member of that, please join as soon as possible because there is legislation happening and we need to have a voice. And as MSPs and small vendor supporting MSPs, we all need to work together for our voices to be heard. So do join that if you can. Prior to Gozynta, I worked in senior leadership as a director of human resources for many years, and also started my master's. I got an MBA, but also started my master's in peace relations. And so kind of using all of these techniques and having peace relations and starting a business is a really great thing to have. And starting to hire employees and creating our own culture, we really put a lot of emphasis on making sure we have a peaceful culture, but one that isn't just let's sweep things under the rug. You have to have a peaceful culture, be able to have small and medium conversations that are a little bit
Yeah.
uncomfortable. You do.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the fun part, right?
That's right.
Before we get too before we get too far into it, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. This is recorded as always wherever you're watching this: Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. The recording will be available immediately thereafter, in case you're not able to join us for the entirety of this as we wrap around 2:05 as we usually do. I do want to point out, again, we'll put the link to the very first one. Please, if you haven't joined, haven't watched that, go ahead and watch that. We put links to Gozynta, so you can reach out to them, and also links to NSITSP, for which I'm also a member as well. Definitely recommend. Thank you, Simon. Right on the money, putting the banner up on screen. Perfect timing. But before we get into this, not only is this a first, this is a last, right? This is your last interview stateside before you move away.
Right. Yes, I know. And it's funny, as I was doing my schedule, I was like, oh, the second partner first is going to be my last interview in this country. 12 days from now, we will be moving our entire life to the Netherlands. We are a remote company, so we will be expanding to Europe with Gozynta, and we'll be moving and settling in Haarlem in the Netherlands. So it's an exciting
Awesome.
adventure.
And I'm very jealous because at the same time, my good friend Kelvin is. I apologize, I'm under the weather, so I sound like a baritone Kermit the Frog at the moment. But Kelvin is here. He's actually in Miami visiting for the Ingram Micro Summit, which I'm not going to go visit him because I don't want to spread my plague. But so speaking of different conversation, whatchamacallit, which slide we left off on one of these slides? Let's bring that up and see which one
Yes.
it was.
Yes.
Let's do a little bit of preamble here. Difficult conversations. Just for those that didn't get to watch the first time, what kind of difficult conversations are we talking about?
Yeah, so these are, and they really can be in your business life, they can be in your home life, even though, I always advise maybe you don't want to do, quarterly reviews with your spouse or your children. But what we talked about, the last one, we got through our first 2 points, and actually some of even point three, but this is, preventing difficult conversations we talked about, and this is mostly with your employees, with your higher ups as well. If you have a boss that you have feedback for, kind of giving some ways on how to approach this. But really, these 2 sessions are really focusing on more from a management perspective. Point one we talked about are ways to prevent difficult conversations by having clear expectations, making sure that you're communicating what the expectations for each employee is very clearly, so they're not trying to have to guess, where in your mind you feel like it's quite obvious, but they're feeling from their perspective that they're guessing what you want. Our second thing that we discussed last time was having small, difficult conversations routinely. So don't build up a whole bunch of things at once. As you see something, just say it quickly. Oh, you know what? Why don't you send out an email right away to this customer, so that they're not waiting and thinking you're not here, they're not hearing from us. So having those small, difficult conversations right away. So we're going to go into handling an impossible conversation. That's where we are starting today. So I think I went. So we have some tools. So the first one is the spinach in the tooth conversation. Okay, and I think we actually went through 2 of these tools, so I'm going to go through this one really fast so we get through everything. Um, this is something, if you see something more minor, more that's more minor, that you don't need like a big sit down conversation, like, there's some spinach in your tooth, just like you'd say to a friend if they had something there. It's just like, hey, you know what? Work on your spelling when you're emailing. It's really important. Or, this person's name is, he calls himself Andrew, not Andy. Make sure you follow up on that. So it's just a quick little, spinach on the tooth kind of conversation.
Not overly major things, just little touch points, little tweaks. Nothing like the sky is falling. Just
Exactly.
I got you.
Yep. The second tool is the one-on-one meetings, and we talked about this one last time as well. This is Faith's one-on-one meeting. I have these weekly. I call them O3s, and you should do it company-wide. So everybody is kind of having that thing every week. 30 minutes. You don't want to just let it go ongoing, because it can overtake your schedule and their schedule. And always prepare for the meeting. This one that I have up here, it just has a check-in with your employee to see how they're doing. Faith says in the chat it's her best day of the week, so that's pretty good. I guess we're doing great
That's awesome.
O3s. We have a quarterly goal to work on time management. We talk about any challenges. This way, it's kind of opening up the back and forth between us, so that if she has an issue, she's not just struggling it on her own. We can fix it very quick.
And there's definitely an itinerary you're trying to go through, or you want to present in advance for this, right?
Absolutely. For the ones that we have we use Asana for it. And what's great with Asana is, if there's a task in Asana that she might have a question on, she can just move it right to our standing O3 meeting. And then I know, oh, okay, she has something that she wants to go over. And as I think of things, oh, I'd like Faith to reach out to Simon about Partner First. I'll put that on there, and then maybe we'll talk through it and add some notes in there. So, we're kind of keeping up and communicating all the time. That way things don't get missed, and we're just always making sure that we're following up with each other. if your employee has like a spinach on the tooth topic that seems recurring, you want to put it on the O3 too. So if Faith, it's kind of more of a let's notice this. So taking Faith, because she's here and I can pick on her, if Faith hadn't been following a procedure many times and I kept telling her when I saw it, I would put in a topic, following procedures might be something that we need to be discussing. Then I would be very direct, but not angry. It's always, if you're feeling any anger or resentment, you want to like do some deep breathing before and say, I've noticed you are having some trouble following this procedure. How can I help you? And then really listen, because you may find that there may be a software issue, there might be something that's going on with their personal life that they might need some assistance with or some advice. They might tell you they have too many things to do and they can't get to all of them. So that's a great way to start talking about those spinach on the tooth conversations on a weekly basis. Tool 3 is the quarterly review. My thing is, I know some people are like, oh, annual reviews are fine. I've done annual reviews, and then, you get, I'm sure everybody's had this, you get like right to the week before the annual review, and it's like, wait, what did I say my goal was last year? Oh, let me pull that up really fast. Let me do that.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I just did my annual goal. We're set. So I suggest doing quarterly reviews with measurable goals. So here for Faith's reviews here, but she did actually make the slide deck, so she knows that she put her review. It must have been a really good one, which is our usually. But what we kind of look at is what she's accomplished and what I want her to work on as goals, with a measure, like as we were talking about SMART goals. It needs to be measurable. So she knows I actually did achieve this, not get better at being kind. And then, that's relative. I could think that, she isn't, and she could feel like I'm being really kind. I only swore at a customer 3 times. You know what I'm saying.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
By IT standards, that's not bad.
So that's, I love the quarterly reviews. I love to also, I assign a book every quarter, and then we both read the book, and then we work out of it. We use it as references. Other things to put in that quarterly review, any long-standing issues. So you always want to have a folder of things, because you forget them. When you're preparing for quarterly reviews, you might be like, yeah, wait, I think I had some problems with this employee. Have that folder and just type some notes out. Make sure that you're keeping track. Great, to look at the O3s. If you're doing those O3s regularly, you'll see the patterns of things that you've brought up a lot. You want to check in on where the employee is feeling on their position in the company and see where they see themselves in the future. And then you want to set goals to address the issues. One of the things that I found is sometimes we have different expectations where we see one of our employees than they do. So you might be like, this person's manager material. I'm going to give them all sorts of stuff to build up their managerial skills, and they do not want to manage anybody. And so you're kind of like preparing for 2 different things. And they could get frustrated, so be really clear
Yeah.
about where do you see yourself? What do you want to be doing?
That's a mistake I made early on in my career. I would identify people that were phenomenal, they were absolute rock stars in their job, and I'm the kind of person that if I'm in a room, I want to be the highest position in the room. I'll work toward it. I'm absolutely going to work toward it, but my ambition is to climb my career whatever career I happen to be in. And I always assume that others would have that same motivation. So I'd find these rock stars and I'm like, oh, they're great at this. They're going to be an even better manager. Start building them up. And I actually burnt out a few employees that way. And it's all on me. It's not on them. I burnt out a few employees over the years on that until I started having the conversation and asking first, where do you see? Would you ever want to be a manager? And I would absolutely get those people who would say, no, I just want to be the best at my job I can possibly be. I don't want to be a manager. And it completely it throws you off, but it sets the right tone once you understand their perspective.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And it works the other way as well. You could have somebody that you think, is barely making it and needs work at the job that they have. And they see themselves as, being a C level sometime. And, it's good to set that expectation as well. So it's really great to really listen to what they're saying and keep asking the question every quarter, because
That may
things
change, right?
change. Those people,
Yeah.
yeah,
Let me ask you a question.
absolutely.
And we actually have
Mhm.
adopted. I told my wife after our last Michelle. I told her after the last one of these we did. I now I call them my O3s. Simon knows this. Now I refer to them as O3s. But Kerry Wagner brought up a comment in the chat that he hasn't done quarterly reviews in over a decade. Even when he had upwards of 20 employees, he talked to each one every 2 weeks, if not sooner. But what I'm seeing here is the O3s and the ongoing stuff are not a replacement for the quarterly reviews. It's both
Yeah.
in aggregate.
Yes. Yeah. So the O3s and then the quarterly. So as part of the O3s, I bring in those quarterly goals. So one of our items we have are for each of the quarterly goals. That makes sure that those quarterly goals are not put on the wayside and forgotten about. We look at them. How is time management going? Have you had any issues with that? Hey, let's look at that book we had that addressed dealing with difficult customers, and let's see if the issue that you had this week with a customer, which one of your goals were to be less scared of those situations, let's see if we can apply that and work on it together. So it's being an active partner with your employee on a weekly basis to achieve those quarterly goals.
Cool. I love that. Yeah, we do. We changed the cadence for new employees. So new employees do 7 day with HR or people person, 7:30, 60, which is their kill off probation, 90, and then it's and then after that it's plus 90 because it's their 6 months. We do every 6 months after that. So we do every 6 months, just because of size and sheer number of people. But we do quarterly
Yeah.
OKRs, so there's still a lot of those little touch points here and there, which is nice.
Yeah, I like that. I like that as well. One of the things that I do that we do goes into with our quarterly reviews is have the employees fill out a self-reflection form first, and I send it out a few weeks before the review. It helps. I think both of us get into the mind frame, because if you just jump into the quarterly review, you start thinking about your last quarter almost at that point. Um, and once they submit that, I go through the information I have from their job expectations, their job description, their O3s from the quarters, goals, challenges from their self-assessments, and I figure out the talking points for our review and write them down. This helps because if you had those talking points and write them down ahead of time, then you send that to the employee later, and and then, and also for their HR file, obviously. But none of the points that are brought up in the quarterly review should be new. They should be the things that you're talking about during your O3s and working on. But whether old or new, you have concrete examples whenever possible. I think everybody that has a business and has employees have those situations where we
Oh
feel
yeah.
like, well, it must be obvious that they're doing this. And then you say, could you be a little more polite to customers? And they're like, what? I'm so polite. Give me an example. And it's, what? There's so many. So
Yeah.
always have that example on hand, because at least for me personally, when somebody's like, give me an example, I'm like, uh, trying to remember.
That's
Well, I mean,
that's the hardest thing, right? Like, and this is very much a touchy feely, this is left brain stuff, right? Touchy feely, type thing. But still, as a manager, you still have to quantify it. You still have to qualify it. So like on this, we use Salesforce as our ERP. So one of the things we built out in our HR module in Salesforce is the management notes for managers. In the beginning, it was very much having to teach the managers, this isn't just for negative interactions. This is for all
right.
interactions. So we can remember when we go back to those, semi-annual reviews, look at the entire history of what we're talking about. It's not just the stuff that pops up in memory, because if you go by memory, you're going to remember the extremes, right? You're going to remember the absolute worst or the absolute best, but you're not going to remember all the little stuff they did throughout the rating period, which was also great, which also
Yep.
deserves recognition. And it's hard because as people, the last thing we want to do is, hey, you did a really good job. Okay, type, 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 type. Like, it sucks,
Right.
but you have to do it. Even if simple as like taking your team's conversation and just copy paste it into whatever you use for notes or your OneNote or whatever it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of
Right.
HR, Carrie says I'm going to get sent to HR for talking about touchy feely. And I'm absolutely the last person in the world to talk about touchy feely because I'm a meat and potatoes kind of guy. But you those things help you as a manager because they also, like you said, if you don't go back when you go to the your quarterlies or the semi-annual or whatever, and you don't look at your notes, you're going to forget all those great things they did throughout the year, and you're just going to remember, oh, they
Absolutely.
did hit their metrics, or they didn't hit their metrics. You need those other qualifiers that, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. And also misses opportunities. I mean, some of these things are small tweaks, and if you're not giving them the opportunity to be able to fix those, you're doing them a disservice.
Yeah.
So it's a really great tool. This is a performance review. Remember to add SMART goals. Try to help them achieve their aspirations within the company. It's not solving an immediate problem, but it does prevent the employee from possibly leaving because they don't see any way to move up and advance. I've worked with managers who either assume that their employees don't want to move up and don't help them grow, and then they find a path elsewhere. And then, as we talked about, I've seen managers think someone wants to be a manager and push them too hard, and as you've had experience, it kind of burns them out. And I have a crackerjack employee who wants to be a C-level. So we choose different goals each quarter. She takes courses, reads books, does some trainings, and we kind of look at the things that she needs to get to where she wants to get, whether it's with us or with another company.
Yeah, it's
So,
it's one of those things you have to remember. It's not just because they may not want career advancement doesn't mean they don't want career growth. Those are
right.
two different things. You know what I mean? It's like it's
Yeah.
that it's that tech that wants to be, and and I'm happy to call him out because he's the first to say it. One of our techs, DJ, has been with us several years. Awesome guy, smart guy. He's flat out said. Now he's also younger. He's in his early 20s, but he says today he doesn't want to be a manager, but his focus is I want to be a rock star. I want to be the absolute best that people come to me and look for advice and I help others. And it took me a while to understand and appreciate that. But today I absolutely appreciate that because you need those rock stars at every level, right? Otherwise you have
Absolutely.
50,000 managers.
Absolutely. We love our rock stars. We need them for sure. So now we've gotten to the point where how to handle an impossible conversation. We've laid all this groundwork. We're really proud and happy and feeling great. But I can't guarantee you're never going to have an impossible conversation. They're kind of inevitable. We look at Sally. We've onboarded her with clear documents, SMART goals, expectations. You're having O3s. But she keeps making the same mistakes and procedures. And you've talked to her in the O3s. Nothing gets better. You've done quarterly meetings, set goals, and we're not getting anywhere. So at this point, you need to have an or else talk. I hate these. Nobody is going to be like, oh, I love doing that. But,
These are
you
the
know,
most difficult, right? These
they really,
like
well, there's one more that's even worse. But, you have that conversation where it's like, okay, you might not be, and an or else talk might not be able to wait as long as a quarterly meeting. But the most
Mhm.
important thing is to get everything in writing in advance of the meeting. This could go to them not having a job after, so you really have to be prepared for what steps could happen in here. Get everything in writing in advance of the meeting. It's a non-minced conversation, still with no anger, very calm. You should have a goal that they should reach and maintain for the course of their employment. For Sally, you could say something like, you need to bring your procedural errors to this month down to 3. If you make 3 a month, your position will be terminated. This level of care must remain going forward and for the next year. If the amount of mistakes rise above 3, we will need to terminate your position. it doesn't need to be friendly, and don't soften it. Don't say, we may need to think about possibly re-looking at your position. Make it clear, because being direct really helps both sides. We had an employee that I tried to make it nicer, and they walked away feeling like that was a really good talk. And I was like, they looked at the positive things I said, because I was trying to sandwich a nice thing with and then work on
Yeah.
this, and here's something else nice. And they walked away with just the nice things and didn't really get the meat of what I was saying, which was, this is essential.
I don't know if you were doing it on purpose, but like even your demeanor and your tone changed to more matter of fact when you were saying these comments.
Yeah.
And I get it. It's like that, and that's one of the hardest things as managers, right? Like, because you have a vested interest. You work really hard to try to get these employees to improve, and you invest in them. And so when there's issues like this where you're at the or else talk, there are emotions, there are feelings in there, but you have to remove them from the conversation. It reminds me, my wife and I, and actually my 9-year-old loves this too. We're rewatching Scrubs, and there's a scene where one of the residents goes in and tells somebody they're supposed to tell somebody they're going to be dying, right? That there's nothing else they can do, they're terminal. And the resident walks out, and the person's all smiling and laughing and giggling, and they're like, I don't think you got your message across properly. You're gonna have to go in there and use the words "you're dying." You know what I mean? But it's very much, it's an
Hard.
extreme example, but it's this, right? It's like you don't want to be overly negative where you're beating them down, but at the same time, it has to be very clear. This is like the step before the last step.
Right.
We're trying to prevent this, right? Like this is the
Right.
train we don't want to get derailed, but you're dangerously close.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's a hard line to walk.
It really is. And there could be crying. And if there's crying, be sympathetic, but don't back down. If there's anger, listen. Don't be angry back, because, they're feeling things, and fear and hurt comes out as anger sometimes. So just, don't take it personally. But hopefully, since we've been doing the O3s, this conversation shouldn't be a complete surprise. It should be nothing they're hearing for the first time. And then always follow up an email and have them sign. And of course, put it in their HR folder and follow up, schedule a follow-up meeting to check in on those SMART goals. Then the final conversation.
Simon, we need to bring you up for this. We got something to tell you. Do not live stream the final conversation.
Yeah,
please.
right. Yeah, the final conversation. Yes. Suppose Sally, she makes those 3 mistakes the next day. Doesn't make the SMART goals at the end of the scheduled time. First, get her termination letter ready ahead of time. It clearly needs to state when her benefits end, how the company will pay her for unused vacation time, how to return her equipment. Think of all of those things. Those should be in your procedures ahead of time, but make sure it's all taken care of ahead of time. You don't want to be doing anything after. We'll get to that after, but schedule the meeting. Try to have it at the end of the day. Notify someone to disconnect her access to any accounts while you're having the discussion. That's one that probably a lot of people have learned the hard way. I know it sounds cold, but you don't want an upset employee sending a bulk message saying you're stinky or worse to everyone. So do this even if you don't think you need to, and do it for everyone. It won't cause as hurt feelings if you do it just for a few, and actually that could be a lawsuit. So make it a procedure for everybody, that it happens for everybody. That last conversation should be as to the point as possible. It's to say you did not make the goal that we agreed upon, and so the employment is being terminated, effective immediately. You don't need to go through all their past wrongs. That's one of the things that I think managers get into. It's like, I tried to tell you, and it's done. It's over. You don't need to. They already feel terrible. So be patient, allow space for their emotions, but try to get through that as quickly as you can. Try to make sure that they see what's in the letter. They're probably not going to be paying attention to what you say. That's why you want that letter. Get to business, cover the bases very quickly, what they need to know, what they need to do next, and repeat those steps often and give that letter that backs it up.
I'm a firm believer in sharing our wins and our losses. I am going to mention some mistakes I've made over the past, and definitely love your
Please.
feedback if you have any.
Yeah.
And if if you have any tips or tricks in the chat, I know we've all been in this position, maybe on both sides of this conversation, but many of us have been in this position before. But like some of the things I've done in the past where, you know, I've done the too soft in the conversation where they thought, where it became more of a back and forth dialogue about like if there was still made it seem like there was still an opportunity to save their position. And I've had that before, and that was a big mistake. I mean, like you said, it needs to be matter of fact. This is the final step. This isn't the step before the final step. I've done the whatchamacallit. I've given them the litany of mistakes, but with too much feeling into it. Like started to go through all their, you made this misstep, you made this misstep, as opposed to saying, we haven't been able to meet our goals. With that, we're going to be terminating your position effective immediately. I've listed here, this is what HR is going to do next, blah, blah. Just the matter of factly, because I found if I go through all the litany of mistakes, they're going to want to argue back all the litany of mistakes.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Or worse, you're going to get into the I can do better, I can do better. And it sucks to say it, but if they could have done better, all those opportunities, if you're doing your job right, would have been before this meeting, right? They would have had every opportunity to do it.
Absolutely.
And it sucks. I've had the crying, I've had the yelling. I personally, my thing is terminations. I usually do with somebody else in the room,
Yes.
just to have a second person. I learned that from the police department, where it was always CYA for everything. And it sucks. It really sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And moving from it just sucks. And I've had ones that, I'm not a big crier, but I've cried along with somebody that I had to terminate. And, it just because it was awful. It was just terrible. And it was the first time I ever had done that. And I just wasn't prepared for how awful that was going to be. And I'd hate to say I've gotten better at it, but I've been able to be more detached with it. And that has helped, having that, this is what I have to do. I'm sorry, this is not the time for a discussion. We need, let me get you the next steps that you need to take.
And it doesn't mean there can't be empathy, right? Like I've had plenty of times, like I can't say I expect this every single time, but I've had plenty of times where they say thank you, or they give me a hug, or
Yes.
we part on good ways. And one of the things usually, and I always see, if I have to terminate somebody, I find that to be a failure of management. Probably I'm being too hard on myself, but I will say either I hired the person wrong, or I didn't train them right, or I didn't get the best out of them. I misjudged something along the way that went from hire to termination, right? That I always look back and what I could have done better, but I tell them very matter of factly, I think I want to set you up for success if the case fits, right? Like I don't say this to everybody, but I've said it fairly often, I want to set you up for success. I don't see you succeeding in this role, because we've had, the mistakes we've been unable to fix. I think at this point we're going to be terminating your position. I want you to be successful in the next place, blah, blah, blah. If you can tell them, like the last thing you want to do is set somebody up to fail too, right?
Absolutely.
And it could be a good thing. Sometimes even if you terminate somebody, you can still, it doesn't mean you have to part negatively. It doesn't mean they're not always, they could absolutely be pissed. They're entitled to be pissed.
Yeah.
But and don't get engaged in that either, right? Like if they get mad, you can't get mad. Like they're, you just have to suck it up, buttercup, like I like to say.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Just saying, this is not easy for me either. I totally understand what you're going through. I understand why you're feeling upset. It's obviously empathy takes a huge part in it, and just then also trying to keep, your own self okay as well. One of the big things I think people don't think about in this is your own self-care. as business owners, I've seen people do that final conversation and then go into another meeting, and it's no, no, don't do that. That's why I always say to do it towards the end of the day. Also, that it helps because you don't have the drama of other employees feeling uncomfortable
Yeah.
about it as well. But you need your sit and drool time, and you need to allow yourself the space. It isn't easy. And as you said, talking about the things that maybe went wrong, you need to spend some time and think about, like a post-mortem, and say, maybe our training needs to be better. Why did why did it go this way this time? Never pack an impossible conversation between meetings, presentations. You need to make space for yourself just to recenter. You can think about some of those issues, like how you could have done better, but also just sitting there and drool. There's no judgment. Mental health is so important, and and also be empathetic to other managers as they go through that as well, because they need also the time to sit and drool.
It's funny you say that. It was never a cognizant thing. It wasn't anything that I intended. It was intentional by any means. But one of the things I found myself doing is after a termination, and after the person had cleared out, I'd find myself going back to my wife's office. My wife is CFO of our company. And just sit down and talk to her about what happened, or my daughter's also a high level in our company, and it was an opportunity to decompress, you know what I mean? Just get it off my shoulders, whether it was positive or negative, but just, it was that mental health break, like you're saying, is just taking that, because it is tolling on the manager. It's not, it sucks for the person losing their job, but realize, and I'm not trying to displace one person's emotions with another, they each have their place, but realize if you're going to go into this conversation, it is going to affect you in some way, shape, or form. So prepare for it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we all probably put our self-care way down at the bottom, and that's one of the messages that I always try to enforce, is we all have to take care of our own mental health. I did a blog post some time ago, called Beating Burnout with Better Self-Care. And it's a blog and some really short videos on self-care for MSPs in 5 minutes. You even get to see a video of me yelling, which people found pretty funny. And of course is the most seen video in that series, just me yelling. But it's just yelling your stress out. Sometimes you need to just step away and have a nice big yell, not at somebody, just, find an empty room and just or drinking a cup of tea intentionally, not with your phone, but actually, like, feeling the hot glass and breathing the herbs as they steep, and just being really present in that moment. If 5 minutes is all you have, use those 5 minutes so you can center yourself, because being a business owner is tough. And no one else is going to make that time for you except for you. So
Absolutely, yeah.
please do that. There's one more tool that I wanted to, I'm so glad we have time for it, but it's a hard one, I think, but creating a safe space for employees to have difficult conversations with you. In our O3, we always have a spot where I ask what I can be doing better. And so we always make sure that we're doing that. But this is a really fun tool to have for a company retreat or something. Making a safe environment to have employees critique on how the company's doing. Making a safe space, hearing their feedback. It might have to do with the culture and things you didn't realize were undercurrents. I know we had a couple employees, or actually had an employee that was pretty negative, and we didn't know, we didn't see it, but it was really affecting the morale of the rest of our team. But whenever we saw the person, they were fine. So, and nobody wanted to seem to want to tell us, because they were a really rock star employee. But giving ways to make conversations happen is a wonderful way you can find out about what people feel about working for your company. So we were going to have a retreat and we didn't. So this was actually Faith's kind of mock-up of this idea. And actually, CompTIA recently used this, actually these two slides, as they used it as a tool that they wanted to have people share as well. So this is an exercise to do at a company retreat. And you have your employees work in like teams of 5 to 8. Give them a big piece of paper, lots of colorful markers, and have them as a team draw your company as a car. Today, like what is Gozynta today? Tell them to make it as detailed as possible. Tell them they will have to explain the reasons for the features that they gave. So, Faith has a bright future with headlights, well built, sturdy, on track. You might, somebody else might say maybe we have a flat tire or something. It kind of gives a creative outlet for your employees to maybe give some news they might not want to tell you straight to your face. And then also you do the exercise again, and it's the company car in 5 years. Where do they see us going? And always looking forward. Now, Faith was very gentle on us, but she also has a review in there. So, but what we want
Smart
is,
one.
yeah, exactly. She is smart. We want people to kind of, with humor and with art, be able to say the things they'd like to see improved. It could be something with the culture. They want to keep pieces that they like. Always looking forward, more innovation, coming up with more things to give to the community. So,
And I like this because I'm seeing stuff like, and I'm just reading it. I have it zoomed in here. Still with the same values and same sturdiness, still familiar, always looking forward. Innovation, a new way to do it. That moving forward doesn't mean changing the things that made you awesome. It just means improving on them, right?
absolutely not. You don't want to stay stagnant. They want us to keep going. So, yeah, so that's a tool maybe you want to use, because, yeah, it's kind of a fun thing. And it kind of leads into, we just have about 10 minutes left, and I can show what we ended up innovating, which goes into payments.
I would love that. We're
Yeah,
so excited about that. I know I was asking you guys every other week, like, when is it finally coming out? When is it finally coming out? So,
yeah, we are so excited, and we've been working on this for quite some time. We wanted to upgrade the platform. We wanted to make it secure, obviously, especially dealing with anything with financial information. But this is now only available for ConnectWise Manage users and QuickBooks Online users, so it integrates the two. But at some point in the future, not even in the far 5-year future of Gozynta, this is going to be more of an independent platform, so you don't need PSA. You can create invoices and get paid right from Gozynta payments. So, our current users, we have 1,100 MSPs that use Mobius products, and they love us because we're family-owned business. So we focus on empathy, but also they know we appreciate security. In fact, we're the only the only integration between Manage and QuickBooks Online that's passed into its really, really rigorous security review.
oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, it was quite a thing. and we're taking that care, and we're bringing that to payments. This is a competitor to WisePay and Connect Booster. The big difference with this is that it is white labeled. So your customer will receive their invoice with a payment link in their email. It's branded with your logo. It comes from your own email domain, and it directs them to your domain as well. So it doesn't redirect them to another company, which is important. Attached to the email is a PDF of the invoice from ConnectWise Manage. That is a very well-loved format. So that is included as well. And once your customer clicks the link in their invoice email, they will be directed to the payment page again with your domain name, and they can pay via credit card or ACH.
I want to
And
ask real
then,
quick. I'm getting a
yeah,
request in one of the discords. Does it do auto recurring yet?
auto recurring is coming in the first year. So this is
Okay.
our beta offering. So we are the designs have been made, and it's all ready to go. That's going to be our first. I think our first release is going to be a customer portal where they can update their information and schedule auto recurring pay or the recurring payment, which
Nice.
we realize that's super important. Um, and then you get clear confirmation.
We and the obvious question, as soon as you say one for one, then the next three players also want to know when for them. When and why
Yes.
Autotask?
Oh, Autotask. Autotask would be our second. I mean, we've wanted to go to Datto for a while, and they have been really massively welcoming and wanting us to integrate. Again, we are a small family-owned company, so we had the most demand, obviously, since we have 1,100 ConnectWise managed customers currently. We started with manage. When Autotask, well, if you can get me a whole bunch of customers, Carrie, we will get going really fast. So, email, say we do have a list of people who wanted us to make an integration for Mobius for Autotask, and I think we have a good amount of people on it. So, I'll put you on that list of people who want Autotask. Oh, great. That's awesome. Super. I'm beta tester. Awesome. Especially also because this will eventually not need a PSA, and that would work as well. But you get clear confirmation that this would be your customer's view once they paid, that you paid. You want that nice and clear. And when the payment's complete, goes into Mobius, syncs a completed payment back over to QuickBooks and then sync back over to Manage daily. So you get everything is in order. We have decided to do this as it's called an interchange rate. That is the absolute lowest rate you can do. Some people do it's easier to see, but it will be like a straight 3% or something like that. This is Interchange Plus. You have to, because every MasterCard, Visa, every version has a little bit of a different percentage, but it comes to be about 2.95. Some choose to do a standard rate, but it ends up being a little higher because some of those credit cards are a little bit lower. So this is the way to send the savings along to the customer instead of us pocketing it, which we really kind of build products to help out the small and medium business community. That's what we like to do.
Love that.
Yes.
And
So,
to be clear, this
yes,
is live right now. This is ready to go right
this
now.
is It is. Yes, Tuesday we started signing people up. It was like partying here. I'm so excited about it. And yeah, the customer portal will be launched this year as well. If you want to start, you can go to our website, www.gozynta.com. You can see more about Mobius, our texting integration, text or payments. And yeah, you can start getting signed up and using it right now.
I love that. Awesome. Well, there you go. The last interview of for Heather of in the United States, and I appreciate it. Live goes into payments. We learned how to have difficult conversations. We learned how to take time for oneself after those difficult conversations. I don't see that said enough, and I can tell you I've definitely needed it over the years because it does take a toll on you. Heather, thank you so much for these awesome words of wisdom, for your thoughts. These slides are available. We'll have them in the show notes below and the link to download them. Please reach out to Heather, Brian, Faith, the awesome team at Gozynta. They just do awesome things and they're awesome people. I cannot say anything. I cannot say enough wonderful things about these wonderful people. So sorry while I'm still foggy brained. Simon, help me out here. What do we got coming up, man?
So I am also foggy brained, but we do have a lot of events going on. We just got wrapped up with part 2. For anyone that did not see this, the recording will be available right after, so you guys can rewatch it. We're also at the 7-Figure MSP live event in Dallas. So right now, Matt Conley, and he's out there taking pictures, giving swag, talking VoIP. So make sure you meet him. That's today and tomorrow. This Friday, we have the MSP Dispatch Week Wrap Up presented by the MSP Media Network, hosted by Ray and Tony Francisco. And then on Tuesday, we're back with MSP Dispatch, catching up on the news that happened over the weekend. And for anyone that's going to IT Nation Secure in Orlando, Florida, June 6th to June 8th, we're going to be there as well with our booth. So make sure you come by and say hello to the team.
Awesome. Well, Heather, anything else you want to tell the OIT family out there before we let you go?
Well, thank you guys. You're just a wonderful community. I always love when I get to talk to Ray and see all of you guys. So thank you for your support, and always reach out. You want some business advice or have an HR issue, I'm always happy to chat. So.
Heather is my ace in the pocket whenever I have, like, how do I run my business? How do I handle these HR problems? I always ping her privately and, hey, can you give me your advice, please? And she always saves the day. So I definitely appreciate it. With that, thank you, OIT family, for joining us. We appreciate you being in the chat. We definitely want to see your comments. Hit us up in the comments in the video. Make sure you like, subscribe, and all that jazz. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.
This has been a broadcast